What if there was a way other than wearing glasses to change how clearly you see the world, both close up and far away? How would your life be different over the next few decades if you found out that glasses weren't inevitable or the only option for improving your vision? You're listening to the Health Courage Collective Podcast, episode 88, Keep Your Eyes Biologically Young, Part 2. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective Podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello, my friend. Welcome to another episode. So happy to be here with you for a few minutes today. Last week, we talked all about how important your eyes are to your ability to age well. Our vision heavily influences our overall independence and our movement and moment-to-moment interactions with the world and the changes we want to make in it. There are simple things we can be doing now to preserve our vision and decrease our chances of losing it due to cataracts, glaucoma, retinopathy, and macular degeneration. Today we're going to talk about glasses or contacts. This is a brief introduction into the Bates method for seeing better without glasses. I hope it's interesting to you and valuable for you to know about whether you decide you want to do anything about it or not. I just like the idea of you having options, and I love the idea of you thinking in a way that challenges accepted norms, especially medical norms. I believe that you can be way better than normal. All right, so I'm not an eye expert or an expert in the Bates method. I've never even worn glasses or had an eye exam, so take that into consideration. I'm just a curious person who wants to live in a world where awesome women like you are making waves and not being held back by health problems and limitations that could have been avoided. I had heard of the Bates method a few times over the last 5 years or so and thought, I should look into that. Sounds interesting. I'd love to not have to start wearing glasses when I turn 45 or however old. And I have one son who wears glasses, and it might be fun if he wanted to do the work for him to be able to ditch his glasses if he wants to. I'm fine with whatever, but it would be kind of nice to not have to pay for his contacts every year. Kids are so expensive. I'm sure you know that. At least I don't have an expensive pet because I would not handle that well. Okay, so we all know that the lens of our eye refracts the light and focuses it into the retina where the photoreceptors translate that into an electrical signal that our optic nerve sends to our brain and our brain interprets as an image. That alone is pretty freaking cool. We know that the ciliary muscles control how big or small our pupil is in response to the amount of light, and that if our lens isn't the perfect shape, the light that comes into our retina isn't focused correctly, or everything looks fuzzy. Some people are nearsighted, and some are farsighted, and some have astigmatism, which is a non-uniform curvature of the cornea or the lens. The way you focus the light correctly in those cases is to get glasses to alter the light refraction and make it focus better at the back of the eye. And as we get older, we all lose visual acuity, especially for near objects like fine print. All of that stuff is an easy given. But what if it's all wrong? What? Ophthalmologist Dr. William Bates postulated that the vision problems are not genetic or age-related and thus are not unavoidable. He lived from 1860 to 1931 and was an ophthalmologist in New York. He also invented a surgery for deafness in 1886 that's still used today, and he sort of discovered adrenaline. Crazy. He was obsessed with learning how to prevent and treat diseases by understanding their causes rather than masking symptoms. This is huge and something that I think all of us would agree is a good thing to do. I totally see that everywhere in my pharmacy world. I know Larry's blood pressure isn't caused by an amlodipine deficiency, so why is that the only thing we do about it? But I was never able to see the same thing with vision. Glasses treat the symptom of not seeing clearly, but what's the cause? Yeah, improperly focused light hitting the retina, but why? Dr. Bates's insatiable curiosity led him to question ophthalmological dogma, namely that the lens is solely responsible for vision accommodation and that eyesight, once faulty, could never be restored without the use of glasses. LASIK wasn't a thing in the 1890s. He developed his own method to treat patients, got thousands of people seeing clearly without glasses, and wrote a book about his method in 1920. It reads like a book written in 1920. He even talks about working with a class of mental defectives. He says that all of ophthalmology believes that our organ that gives us our most relied upon sense is imperfectly equipped to respond to the demands of life. He says glasses help a person to see the way crutches help a person to walk. The goal is to walk without crutches someday. It really reminds me of what we talked about back in episode 80. How so much physical pain in life comes from podiatrists believing that the foot is poorly designed, that we have to engineer all of these corrections to accommodate for all of its insufficiencies. He says that all ophthalmologists know that some patients' vision problems resolve spontaneously, and that astigmatism comes and goes, as do all errors of refraction. I don't know about that, but maybe it's true. I thought vision was always constant, but he makes a pretty good argument that it's not. He postulated that, quote, errors of refraction are due not to an organic change in the shape of the eyeball or in the constitution of the lens, but to a functional derangement in the action of the muscles on the outside of the eyeball, and therefore can be eliminated. In making these statements, I am well aware that I am controverting the practically undisputed teaching of ophthalmological science for the better part of a century, but I have been driven to my conclusions by the facts, and so slowly that I am now surprised at my own hesitation. End quote. Bates postulates that the lens is not a factor in visual accommodation, that tension of the muscles that surround the eyeball change the shape of the eyeball enough that it affects accommodation or ability to see clearly near and far. And because of that, the changes to the shape of the eyeball and therefore ability to see or not see are never permanent. He says that people with errors of refraction, whether nearsighted or farsighted or astigmatism, have a few moments where they can see clearly periodically throughout the day. He also talks about how nobody sees perfectly when startled by an unfamiliar sound, and that none of us see unfamiliar objects as well as we see familiar ones. So weird. I've always thought of vision as being constant and unchanging, but according to Dr. Bates, it's not. What do you think? Hey there! I wanted to quickly interrupt and let you know that it's so much less of a struggle to consistently dominate your health choices when the thoughts you think naturally nudge you toward what you're trying to achieve. If you're looking to more consistently rock your healthy behaviors, I have a completely free 18-minute mini course for smart women like you who know that sometimes a quick mind flip can go a long way. Click the link in the show notes or go to healthcourage.ck/page/mini for this free mini course on 6 thoughts people who consistently rock their health choices think, and start putting one of them to good use inside your head today. About glasses, he says that the human eye resents glasses is a fact which no one would attempt to deny. He also thinks that using them makes your eyes get worse, and that's why their strength needs to be increased over time, not because your eyes would have steadily gotten worse even without the glasses. That the error of refraction is caused by a strain on the muscles of the outside of the eye, and that the glasses correct the error of refraction, but not the strain on the eye. In fact, they perpetuate and sometimes increase that muscle strain. He says, it is fortunate that many people for whom glasses have been prescribed refuse to wear them, thus escaping not only much discomfort but also much injury to their eyes. Others, having less independence of mind or a larger share of the martyr's spirit, or having been more badly frightened by oculists, submit to an amount of unnecessary torture which is scarcely conceivable. One such patient wore glasses for 25 years, although they did not prevent her from suffering continual misery, and lowered her vision to such an extent that she had to look over the tops of them when she wanted to see anything at the distance. Her oculist assured her that she might expect the most serious consequences if she did not wear the glasses, and was very severe about her practice of looking over instead of through them. As refractive abnormalities are continually changing from day to day, hour to hour, and minute to minute, the accurate fitting of glasses is, of course, impossible. In some cases, the fluctuations are so extreme or the patient is so unresponsive to mental suggestion that no relief whatsoever is obtained from correcting lenses, which necessarily become an added discomfort. At their best, it cannot be maintained that glasses are anything more than a very unsatisfactory substitute for normal vision. End quote. Wow, so people who wear glasses have no independence of mind, or they have a larger share of the martyr's spirit? I don't think so. I think they just want to see better. And there are advantages to wearing glasses, like they can totally be a fashion statement. You can get different ones to match different outfits. You can dramatically remove them to show how angry or disgusted you are. You can even make people think that you're a mild-mannered journalist when you're actually secretly Superman, because nobody could possibly recognize you once you have the glasses on, right? Dr. Bates talks about how people who refuse to wear their glasses can see better. Maybe. What do you think? I have 2 sons who wear hearing aids, and my older one's broke, so he couldn't hear at school, which is a problem. And we went in right away to get him some new ones, but they took over a month, which was super frustrating. So for a month, he only had one that halfway worked, and he got much better at hearing us without them during that month, because he got used to having to really strain to hear. Like if someone turned the volume way down on your life, you'd get used to really listening hard to hear those whispered sounds. Now that he has his new ones, he can't hear very well without them again. So that makes me wonder if those people really do need glasses to see the same as everyone else, but they're just working harder to see since they don't have the option. If they're actually following the Bates method, though, the answer to that would be no. The Bates method is all about relaxing the muscles around the eye. The cool thing about it is that it really embraces the paradigm that our body parts don't exist in isolation from one another. Our eyeballs aren't separate from the rest of our body or our ecosystem? Environment? What's a good word for that? Our felt experience. Our emotions, intentions, and experiences affect our vision. We know that's true in extreme cases when something majorly traumatic happens and we get tunnel vision or blurred vision. But he says that even much less extreme emotional conditions can affect the tension of the muscles around the eye for some people, and hence their clarity of vision. What do you think? I don't think it does for me, but maybe the reason I've never had vision problems is because I carry my tension in my traps and my jaw, and my eye muscles have managed to stay relaxed. Who knows? But it's interesting to think about as an idea. And I do think it's useful to never think of any part of our body as wholly separate from any other part or at all unaffected by your emotional landscape. I think that was the word I was looking for. So the Bates method is something that people still teach today, and it's all based on these postulations of his that visual acuity is created by relaxed muscles around the eyeball, which then allow the eye to be in its correct shape, not from a faulty lens shape. It's kind of out there as theories go, but I do know that it works for some people. I've always thought of it as eye exercises because I've heard from some people that it's kind of exhausting, but Bates practitioner Claudia Muhlenweg says it is the opposite of eye exercises. It's about relaxation. But in order to induce relaxation, you have to start by feeling strain. She describes the method as a vision re-education to regain normal, effortless eyesight. And normal eyesight includes both central clarity and expansive peripheral vision. The goal is to stop the strain on your eye muscles that are at the root of the problem, that your vision can be altered by conscious choices and habits. Claudia Muhlenweg says that healthy eye habits are based on relaxation, movement, centralization, peripheral awareness, eye teaming, sunlight, blinking, breathing, and nutrients. There are different non-exercises to do to improve each of those things. If you want to give them a try, don't just listen to me. Learn how to do them correctly. I'll put a link to Claudia Muhlenweg's site, and you can find her and other Bates practitioners too. I'm just going to give you a brief overview for curiosity's sake. The main non-exercise to do is called palming. You cover your eyes with your palms of your hands. You don't push on your eyes. You have your fingers crossed over each other on your forehead, and you leave your eyes open. So you're staring into pure blackness. There's a lot more to it than this, but the purpose is to relax your eyes when they're open. Relaxation is pretty much the cure for all visual problems if all visual problems are caused by strain. Our eyes are not relaxed when we're asleep, and just closing our eyes doesn't produce enough blackness. The hardest part of palming is keeping your arms up. There's even a guy who invented an elbow stand you can use to support your elbows for palming, which made me wonder why you don't just get a mask. But I guess there's something about the warmth and touch of your hands that's helpful. There are also elements of memory and imagination in addition to relaxation that help with correcting your vision via palming. Children usually only need to palm for a few minutes, and older people 15 to 30 minutes twice a day, plus if needed for times of strain. That's a long time to sit with your hands over your eyes, so you really have to be committed. The point is to passively look at pure blackness because normal vision is passive. Things are to be passively seen just as they're felt or heard or tasted without effort. In imperfect sight, things are sought after and chased as an effort is made to see them. Sight should be effortless. Another exercise is called sunning. Our cells in our retina need light to see, and sunlight is the purest, most full spectrum light source. Our rods are the ones that give us black and white, soft focus, night vision, and most of our peripheral vision. The cone cells are responsible for color and sharp detail. Our macula is packed with cone cells, which need light to function. Light sensitivity makes vision worse and can be corrected. The sunning exercise is a good one for that. It's also a relaxation exercise. You let the sun hit one side of your face with your eyes closed and relax. Then turn so the sun hits the other side of your face and then back. You feel relaxed, enjoy the warmth on your face, and let your neck gently stretch as you turn back and forth. Another exercise is shifting attention. Simply looking farther away and then closer is a good habit to get into, especially when working on a computer for long stretches of time. Every 20 minutes or so, when you should be standing up from your chair anyway, make a habit of looking at something far away. Or if you've been looking into the distance for a really long time, shift and look at something closer. Another thing to attend to is your peripheral vision. Remember, that's our rod vision. So especially if you're working on a computer, you want something catching your peripheral vision. On her website, Claudia Muhlenweg has a picture of someone wearing those, like springy headbands, like with the two boingy antennas. You know what I'm talking about? But she puts streamers on the spring things, like the streamers that you used to put on the handles of your bike. Did you ever do that? Good times. I've also heard her recommend other ways to get movement in your peripheral vision, like if you have a second monitor, to put a moving GIF of a waterfall or something on there so you see some movement in the periphery. There are also exercises to get better at central fixation. Remember, that's our cone vision, which is so important for clear focus. In his book, remember it was written in 1920, Dr. Bates says, "The remarkable vision of savages who can see with the naked eye objects for which most civilized persons require a telescope is a matter of central fixation. Many can see the rings of Saturn or the moons of Jupiter with just the naked eye. It is not because of any superiority in the structure of their eyes, but because they have attained a higher degree of central fixation than most civilized persons do." Savages. They've got a lot going for them, but it's cool to think of having the ability to have some kind of superhuman vision by getting better at some of these skills. Dr. Bates calls it supernormal vision. That'd be cool. There are also exercises for eye teaming, which is your eyes working together correctly to produce binocular vision. Apparently, that's a more common problem than you'd think. And of course, the health of your eyes is very much dependent on the health of your metabolism and circulatory system and nutrient levels, etc. This isn't related to the Bates method at all, but like pretty much everything else, eyesight that declines with age has been linked to declining mitochondrial function. It's so fascinating. I just listened to a lecture by a physician who says we now know the cause of all mental illnesses and that he has some concrete ways to help patients, and it has to do with mitochondria. Incredible. Anyhow, rods and cones are the most metabolically active cells in your body, so when their mitochondrial energy production declines, they are less able to convert light information into electrical signals to be sent to your brain. Anything we can do to prevent oxidative damage to our mitochondria and boost their health will probably increase the health span of our eyes. One study in 2021 showed that 3 minutes a day of red light therapy, which is a mitochondria-centric anti-aging treatment, improved color contrast visual acuity by 17%. Lastly, Dr. Bates talks about what he calls the accepted ideas of ocular hygiene, which are the ways we've been taught that we could, quote, ruin our eyes. I'm not sure exactly what was going down in the 1920s, but I thought it was hilarious that in his book he said, "There is probably no visual habit against which we have been more persistently warned than that of reading in a recumbent posture." Really? Okay. Never heard that one, but I remember my mom telling me to turn the lights on or up when I would read, probably in a recumbent posture, because Mozart, or maybe Beethoven, went blind from writing music in dim lighting. This may not be true, but it is what I remember her saying, and it always stuck with me that I shouldn't read in dim lighting because that made either Mozart or Beethoven go blind. Anyway, I just looked it up and neither of them were blind. Beethoven went deaf. Both Handel and Bach went blind in their later years, and both of them had botched eye operations from quacks. I can't imagine letting someone operate on my eyes in 1750, which is when they had their surgeries. Since we're getting way off topic, Bach and Handel were both born in Germany, only 1 month apart from one another, and were both operated on by a traveling eye surgeon named Chevalier Jean Taylor from England, who is now a poster child for medical quackery. Handel had 3 operations from 3 different surgeons. So I was about to tell you that my mom was crazy, but it looks like old biographies report that Bach went blind because of reading and writing music in dim lighting. So my mom is vindicated. Only it wasn't true. He likely went blind from secondary glaucoma induced by his botched eye surgery. And Handel had cataracts. Man, am I glad I didn't live in the 1700s. Back to what I was going to say. Dr. Bates says that the idea that reading in dim light, reading fine print, reading in moving vehicles, and reading in a recumbent posture are bad for your vision is diametrically opposed to the truth. He says that when your eyes are properly used in adverse conditions, it actually strengthens them because a greater degree of relaxation is required to see under such conditions than under favorable ones. If those conditions strain your vision, as you correct your vision, the strain will go away. You don't want to persist at doing something that's uncomfortable, though. He says that to advise against using the eyes under unfavorable conditions is like telling a person who has been in bed for a few weeks and finds it difficult to walk to refrain from such exercise. Of course, discretion must be used in both cases. The convalescent must not at once try to run a marathon, nor must the person with defective vision attempt without preparation to outstare the sun at noon. All right, so what do you think about all this? I think it's interesting and at least worth knowing about. Obviously, there's no shame in wearing glasses or getting LASIK, which we didn't even get into, but I think it's cool that there might be another way if you're interested, and that our vision is so much more influenced by our emotions and our mindset and our total body wellness than we're led to believe. If you remember, I'm planning on becoming the creepy stalker of Harvard researcher Dr. Ellen Langer, and it's times like these that I keep remembering her quote that says, "How would things be different if we viewed all disease as psychosomatic?" If this were the case, it might seem unreasonable and perhaps irresponsible not to try to heal ourselves, end quote. Not psychosomatic in a "you're crazy" way, but in a good, every single thing is psychosomatic way. It gives us more options. I'll put links in the show notes if you're interested in learning more about the Bates method, but it's definitely not the easy route or a quick fix. It takes time and relaxed effort and most of all, consistency. But it is an option that is almost never talked about. Or if it is, it would probably be dismissed as insane or a waste of time. But if you can keep your eyes performing like young eyes, even as they get older, you'll be even more unstoppable than you already are. I'll end with a quote from Dr. Bates's book. "The truth about presbyopia is that it is not a normal result of growing old because it can be both prevented and eliminated. It is caused not by a hardening of the lens, but by a strain to see at the near point. It has no necessary connection with age, since it occurs in some cases as early as age 10, while in others it never occurs at all, although the person may live far into the so-called presbyopic age. It is true that the lens does harden with advancing years, just as the bones harden and the structure of the skin changes, but since the lens is not a factor in accommodation, this fact is immaterial. While in some cases the lens may become flatter or lose some of its refractive power with age, it has been observed to remain perfectly clear and unchanged in shape up to the age of 90. If persons who find themselves getting presbyopic or have arrived at the presbyopic age would, instead of resorting to glasses, make a practice of training their eyes to relax and reading the finest print they can find, the idea that the decline of accommodative power is a normal result of growing old would soon die a natural death. End quote. Thank you so much for being here today and learning about this slightly obscure theory. Next week, we're going to talk about how your vocabulary affects how you age. Super interesting. Until then, be a savage. Don't be afraid to read in a recumbent posture, and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.